Olivia Carter held the ivory envelope in her hands, feeling the weight of an invitation that promised everything and nothing. This wasn't just any dinner. It was the birthday party of Madison Langston, and Olivia had a seat reserved. Olivia Carter, a poised and intelligent professor of ethics with rich brown skin, had always been aware of the subtle lines that divided social circles, lines drawn not with ink but with silent judgments. Her husband, Michael Carter, a quiet but powerful investor with a commanding presence, had arranged the invitation weeks ago. Madison Langston, the birthday girl, was the daughter of one of Manhattan's elite families, and the party was to be held at the Blanc Room, a prestigious restaurant near Central Park, where the city's most influential gathered. The crisp October air hinted at the approaching Halloween festivities, mixing the scent of fallen leaves with the distant laughter of children in costumes. The evening was set against the backdrop of New York's bustling streets, where luxury cars rolled past brownstones and amber street lamps cast a warm glow on passers-by. Olivia chose her attire deliberately, a flowing ivory dress that hugged her curves gracefully without shouting for attention. Her hair, a cascade of soft coils, was swept back in a low bun. She avoided flashy jewelry, carrying only a small leather clutch, intent on letting her presence speak for itself. Michael had told her over dinner that she might want to arrive early to settle in on her own terms before the crowd gathered. He himself had meetings lined up and would join later. Olivia understood the unspoken code that governed places like the Blanc Room, where appearance and lineage often mattered more than intellect or character. Yet she was determined not to be invisible. Arriving at the Blanc Room just after 3 p.m, she stepped out of the sleek black Tesla Michael had lent her. The valet, dressed immaculately in charcoal gray, opened the door with practiced politeness, but glanced briefly at Olivia, his eyes flickering with the kind of silent calculation she had learned to recognize all too well. Inside, the marble floors gleamed beneath her sandals, reflecting the crystal chandeliers that hung like frozen fireworks overhead. The scent of truffle oil mingled with chilled champagne, an intoxicating reminder of the exclusivity that awaited within. At the hostess podium stood Emily Parker, a young white woman with tightly pulled blonde hair and a smile that barely concealed the sharpness in her eyes. Olivia approached and offered a polite greeting. "Good afternoon. I'm here for Madison Langston's birthday party. My name is Olivia Carter." Emily flipped through the reservation book, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice light but firm. "I don't see a reservation under that name." Olivia's smile remained steady, though her chest tightened with a familiar ache. "There must be a mistake. My husband, Michael Carter, confirmed our reservation directly. We're supposed to be at table 3 by the window." Emily glanced around before leaning toward a nearby hostess. After a brief whisper, she turned back. "Please wait here. I'll have our manager assist you." As Olivia stepped to the side, the hum of the room continued around her, like a gentle tide, soft laughter, the clinking of crystal stemware, the low murmur of privileged conversations. She wasn't yet offended. She was taking mental notes. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Guests arrived one after another, most dressed in designer labels, their faces framed by privilege. A tall woman in a silk emerald dress swept past the hostess stand, like a storm wrapped in satin. Blonde, tanned, and exuding confidence, she smiled at Emily, who greeted her with an entirely different warmth. "Victoria Langston, welcome. Your favorite table is ready, table 3. Olivia's heart thumped sharply. She turned to Emily, voice calm but edged with quiet authority. "Excuse me, but that's my husband's reservation. Table 3. Emily's expression tightened just enough to betray discomfort. "There must be a mix-up, ma'am. Miss Langston is a regular here. That table has been reserved for weeks. Olivia glanced around. No sign of Michael. No allies. Her fists clenched at her sides, not with rage, but with the restraint of years spent navigating rooms that weren't built for people like her. A guest in a space her husband had helped build, yet treated like a complication. Just as the manager, David Reynolds, approached, his tailored navy suit impeccable and his smile thin, Olivia steadied herself. "We can seat you near the kitchen," he offered. "It's quieter there." "You're offering me the kitchen while someone else sits at the table reserved in my name." Olivia's voice was soft but unwavering. David shrugged with an air of practiced detachment. "We do our best to accommodate our guests, but sometimes mistakes happen." Her spine straightened, a blade of resolve. This wasn't a mistake. It was a message. Outside, the faint purr of an electric engine cut through the room's chatter. Heads turned as a sleek Tesla glided up to the curb. Michael Carter stepped out, his presence commanding without a word. The room shifted instantly, as if the walls themselves recognized the arrival of power tempered by dignity. Olivia's gaze met Michael's across the room. No words were exchanged, but the understanding was clear. The test had begun. "Your reservation must have been a mistake," Emily Parker said, her smile tightening as Olivia calmly repeated her name. The soft clinking of glasses and murmur of well-heeled guests filled the Blanc Room's dining hall. Yet Olivia Carter felt the weight of invisible eyes assessing her every move. As a woman of color with rich brown skin, Olivia had long understood the subtle barriers that came with crossing into spaces traditionally reserved for the privileged few. Tonight was no different, even in this glittering Manhattan setting. Olivia's voice remained steady as she said, "My husband, Michael Carter, arranged this reservation. Table 3 by the window. It's been confirmed." Emily's smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. "Let me get the manager for you," she said, her tone polite yet distant. Minutes later, David Reynolds appeared, a man in his 40s with slicked back hair and a sharp navy suit that spoke of corporate power. His eyes scanned Olivia with a measured coolness, the kind of appraisal reserved for unexpected problems. "Ms. Carter," he began smoothly, "there appears to have been an oversight. Unfortunately, your table has been reassigned. However, we can offer you a seat near the kitchen. It's quieter, less crowded." Olivia's eyes narrowed slightly. "So you're saying the table my husband reserved has been given away?" To whom David gestured casually toward a figure entering the room, Victoria Langston. Draped in a silk emerald dress, Victoria moved with an air of entitlement, the kind reserved for those who knew they belonged. "That table," David said, "has been set aside for Ms. Langston for weeks. She's a valued guest." A hush rippled through the nearby tables, a mixture of whispers and glances. Olivia felt the sting of exclusion, the sharp clarity of a system built to keep people like her at the margins. She squared her shoulders and said calmly, "I'm not here to cause a scene. I only want to sit where my reservation guarantees." David's smile tightened. "Sometimes, Ms. Carter, mistakes happen. We ask for your understanding." Before Olivia could respond, 2 security personnel approached, their presence a quiet but clear signal. The atmosphere thickened. Conversations dimmed to a murmur, the sparkle of champagne glasses dulled by the tension. Suddenly, the smooth hum of an electric engine filled the air, drawing every eye toward the front doors. Heads turned, guests paused mid-conversation, and the waiters momentarily froze in place. Michael Carter stepped through the entrance, his charcoal gray suit, impeccably tailored eyes sharp with controlled authority. The Tesla he'd arrived in was a symbol of quiet power, one that needed no loud proclamation. He didn't speak immediately. His gaze swept the room until it landed on Olivia, standing firm, yet clearly tested. The room seemed to hold its breath. Emily and David exchanged uneasy glances, aware that the evening was about to change course. Michael's voice cut through the silence, low but commanding. "You're asking my wife to leave." Olivia met his eyes, the unspoken bond between them, strengthening her resolve. The game had shifted. Tonight the rules would be rewritten. Michael Carter's entrance was calm, but impossible to ignore, the sleek Tesla, a silent announcement of power. The room's atmosphere shifted instantly, as if the very walls recognized the change in tide. For years, Olivia Carter had walked countless rooms where her presence was questioned, where her worth was weighed not by her achievements, but by the hue of her skin. Tonight in the Blanc Room, the most exclusive restaurant in Manhattan, she was no longer invisible. The man who joined her, Michael, her husband, a man of deep influence and quiet strength, carried the weight of change with him. His deep brown skin gleamed beneath the soft chandelier light, a testament to the dignity they both bore. The Blanc Room was a shrine of privileged marble floors, gleaming under crystal chandeliers that hung like frozen fireworks. Waiters glided silently, wine glasses chiming softly as guests whispered amongst themselves. The air was thick with the scent of truffle oil and the faint undertone of expensive perfume. Yet beneath the elegance lurked a tension no decor could conceal. Michael's gaze locked onto David Reynolds, the restaurant's manager, whose polished navy suit now seemed ill-fitting. David's smile, once confident and authoritative, faltered under the weight of Michael's steady eyes. The room held its breath. "You gave away the table my wife reserved," Michael said, voice low but sharp, each word carefully measured, "to someone who walked in after her." David cleared his throat, struggling to regain composure. "There was a misunderstanding, Mr. Carter. We didn't realize this guest was your wife." Michael's eyes narrowed slightly. "You didn't realize? Or you didn't care?" The implication hung like a blade. Guests turned their heads, curiosity rippling through the crowd. Nearby, Victoria Langston shifted uncomfortably in her chair, her confident facade flickering. She raised her glass, attempting a light laugh, but it sounded forced. "Let's all remain adults," she said, voice tight. Michael ignored her, turning back to David. "Tell me, if she wasn't my wife, would her reservation have magically reappeared?" David opened his mouth, but no words followed. The silence that filled the room was heavy and damning. A soft murmur grew as whispers spread through the tables. Olivia stood beside Michael, her posture straight, her eyes calm but burning with an unspoken fire. This was not just about a seat at a table. It was about respect, dignity, and the right to belong. Then, from the back of the room, Isaiah Thompson stepped forward. A quiet presence until now, Isaiah was an employee of the Blanc Room, a young man with skin as rich and warm as Olivia's. Years ago, Olivia had helped him navigate the difficult path of finding his voice in a world quick to overlook him. Now, with calm conviction, Isaiah spoke. "I've seen what happens when people are judged before they're known," Isaiah said, voice steady. "Miss Carter has earned her place here, and so has every guest who walks through those doors, regardless of the color of their skin." The room shifted again, this time under the weight of Isaiah's words. Guests exchanged glances, some nodding subtly, others silent but visibly moved. Michael's voice carried to every corner. "This isn't a mistake. It's a symptom of a deeper problem, one that starts here with this management, and it ends tonight." David's face paled, the thin veneer of control cracking. "Mr. Carter, please," he stammered, "I assure you." "No," Michael interrupted, his tone final. "We will not move on from this without change." He held up a sleek tablet displaying a reservation log, time-stamped and confirmed under Olivia's name. The digital proof was irrefutable. Whispers turned to murmurs, murmurs to stares of disbelief. "You have 1 hour," Michael declared. Clear your schedule. We're calling an emergency board meeting. And don't touch that reservation log, we have copies. The guests leaned in, captivated by the unfolding reckoning. Victoria Langston's smile vanished as she realized her privileged perch was under threat. Olivia felt a surge of quiet satisfaction, but said nothing. This was never about revenge. It was about justice. As Michael and Olivia made their way toward the table by the window, reclaimed and bathed in the soft glow of candlelight, the room held a new silence. A silence filled not with fear, but with recognition. The clash of crystal glasses resumed, but beneath it all, a revolution had begun. David Reynolds stood frozen, the weight of Michael Carter's words pressing down on him like the silence in the room. The atmosphere in the Blanc room had shifted palpably. The polished veneer of elegance and control was cracking, revealing the tension that lurked beneath. Outside the dining hall, the soft hum of the city drifted in a distant reminder of life continuing beyond these walls. But inside, the guests, staff, and management were caught in a moment of reckoning that would ripple far beyond the restaurant's famed marble floors. Michael Carter, with his deep brown skin glowing under the chandelier's warm light, gathered his composure and led David to a private conference room adjacent to the main dining area. The room was a stark contrast, modern, sleek, with a long obsidian table surrounded by high-backed leather chairs, the perfect setting for decisions that could reshape the Blanc room's future. Inside, several members of the board of directors waited, men and women in tailored suits, some seasoned with silver hair, others younger and tech-savvy, all visibly tense. Olivia was not present. Tonight's battle was Michael's to fight. Clearing his throat, Michael began with measured calm. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here under Clause 12 of the Operating Charter, gross misconduct requiring immediate executive review. He tapped a button on the conference room's touchscreen, and the lights dimmed. A projector descended, illuminating a spreadsheet color-coded with timestamps and notes. The data was irrefutable over the past 6 months. There had been 17 instances where minority guests' reservations were mysteriously altered, delayed, or reassigned to last-minute arrivals who happened to be white. In 12 of these, David Reynolds had exercised override access. Murmurs rippled around the room. One older board member adjusted his glasses and asked cautiously, "Michael, are we certain these numbers represent intentional discrimination? Or could there be other explanations?" Michael's gaze sharpened. Intent is not always signed on a document. Sometimes it's in the pattern. Courtesy shouldn't be currency, and prejudice cannot be policy. David shifted uncomfortably, the weight of the data and Michael's words pressing on him. "I've been with the Blanc room since its inception. This isn't how we typically operate. It is how you have consistently operated." Olivia's voice echoed softly from the doorway as she entered her presence, commanding but composed. "I've heard complaints for years, but tonight we have proof." The room fell silent as Olivia stepped forward, her brown skin glowing with quiet dignity. She recounted her experience, the humiliation of being relegated to the kitchen's edge despite her husband's investment and her own contributions to the community. Isaiah Thompson, now formally promoted to head of guest relations, followed with testimonies from staff members who had endured or witnessed similar biases but feared speaking out. Michael closed the presentation. "We either embrace transparency, equity, and accountability, or we accept the slow decay of this institution's integrity." The silence that followed was heavy with consequence. Then one by one, board members nodded in agreement, signaling the beginning of a new chapter. David Reynolds, once the embodiment of the old guard, was formally relieved of his duties. The room exhaled collectively, a mixture of relief, apprehension, and cautious hope. Later that evening, Michael and Olivia returned to the dining hall. The staff, now gathered in a private briefing, listened as Michael addressed them, directly pledging a culture of respect and openness. Isaiah spoke next, encouraging employees to share their experiences and ensuring their voices would shape future policies. Olivia looked around at faces both relieved and determined. This wasn't just a victory for her or Michael. It was a victory for everyone who had been silenced or sidelined. As the last guests departed and the lights dimmed to a soft amber glow, the Blanc room felt different, lighter, more alive. A place where finally dignity had found its rightful seat. Isaiah Thompson stepped up with quiet determination, a young man of deep brown skin who had once been overlooked but now stood as a beacon of change. Olivia Carter watched from afar, feeling a profound sense of hope. The small steps taken today promised to ripple into a future where fairness was not an exception, but the norm. The morning light spilled softly through the large windows of the Blanc room's staff lounge. The air carried a fresh energy tinged with anticipation and cautious optimism. Isaiah, recently promoted to Director of Guest Experience, was ready to lead a new era for the restaurant. His voice, steady and sincere, filled the room as he welcomed the staff, many of whom had carried silent burdens for years. Today we build a space where every voice matters, Isaiah began, his eyes meeting those of servers, hosts, kitchen workers, and janitorial staff. No more whispering in the shadows. This is a place of respect for our guests and for each other. Olivia sat quietly nearby, her presence a symbol of resilience and dignity. She knew firsthand the toll that silence and exclusion could take. Now, as employees shared stories of being passed over for promotions or reassigned to less desirable shifts for reasons unspoken, a collective courage blossomed. Michael Carter joined the gathering, virtually addressing the staff via video link. His calm voice carried through the room. We're introducing an AI-assisted reservation system designed to detect bias patterns. This technology will help ensure transparency and fairness. The staff listened attentively, some nodding, others absorbing the gravity of the commitment. The atmosphere was charged but hopeful. Olivia found herself approached by a young waitress named Tanya, who had hesitated to speak up before. "Thank you for standing up for us," Tanya whispered. "It feels like we're finally being seen." Isaiah smiled warmly, his role now more than a job, it was a mission. He introduced weekly forums where staff could safely voice concerns and propose ideas, fostering an open dialogue that had long been absent. Meanwhile, media outlets had begun picking up the story of the Blanc room's transformation. Articles praised the restaurant's radical steps toward equity and accountability, sparking conversations across New York and beyond. Olivia's thoughtful commentary appeared on ethics blogs, her words resonating with readers who had faced similar struggles. Yet amid the progress, an email landed in Michael's inbox, an anonymous tip warning of resistance brewing among some influential patrons and insiders. The quiet battles ahead were far from over. But for now, as sunlight warmed the polished floors and laughter began to replace whispered fears, a new chapter was unfolding. Olivia felt the weight of years lift slightly. The path toward justice was long, but it was no longer walked alone. The Blanc room's doors opened once again, but this time it was for a new chapter. Not just about fine dining, but about fairness, respect, and a reclaimed dignity. Olivia Carter stepped inside, her deep brown skin glowing softly beneath the warm amber lighting. This room, which had once been a place of silent exclusion, was now a stage for change. The evening air in Manhattan was crisp, tinged with the scent of fallen leaves and distant street vendors selling roasted chestnuts. It was late autumn, and the city pulsed quietly beneath a canopy of glowing streetlights. At table 3, the table Olivia had once been denied, white linen covered the surface, candles flickering gently alongside a fresh bouquet of white peonies. This was not just a table anymore. It was a symbol. Michael Carter stood beside her, his slate gray suit tailored perfectly, his presence calm yet commanding. Isaiah Thompson, now director of guest experience, awaited their arrival with a genuine smile that reflected the transformation happening behind the scenes. Around them, the staff moved with renewed purpose and pride, their posture straighter, their eyes brighter. Guests who had once whispered in skepticism now offered nods of respect. Emily Parker, the hostess who had initially denied Olivia's reservation, approached with a sincere warmth. "Dr. Carter, it is an honor to have you here," she said softly. Olivia smiled, feeling the weight of history balanced by the promise of progress. The servers spoke in quiet tones, aware that this night marked more than just a celebration. It was a reckoning and a renewal. As they sat, Isaiah presented Olivia with a framed copy of the original reservation confirmation, time-stamped and archived, a tangible testament to the victory of truth and perseverance. Olivia held it gently, the frame reflecting the candlelight like a beacon. "Proof," she said softly, "that sometimes history has a receipt." Michael lifted his glass, the crystal chiming softly. "Not just this one," he said, "but every name that will never again be erased because they don't fit the room." The dinner unfolded with a menu inspired by revolutionary women from around the world. Each dish told a story of resilience and courage, flavors bold and unyielding, much like Olivia herself. As the evening waned, Olivia found herself reflecting quietly. This was not the end of the struggle, but a new beginning. The walls of the Blanc room had been rewritten not with ink, but with courage, accountability, and respect. Outside, the city glittered like a sea of stars, each light a witness to change. Olivia reached for Michael's hand, their fingers intertwining effortlessly. "It wasn't about winning the argument," she murmured. "It was about changing the rules of the game." Michael nodded, his eyes steady and full of hope. "And that change starts with one name, one seat, one woman who refused to be invisible." The room fell into a comfortable silence, punctuated only by soft laughter and the clinking of glasses. Around them, the world was listening, learning, and slowly beginning to draw new lines. Not around who belonged, but around what would no longer be tolerated. Because from this night forward, the standard had changed. And it bore her name. In the quiet glow of that final evening at the Blanc room, the room was no longer just a stage for fine dining, but a sanctuary where dignity was reclaimed and injustice confronted. Olivia Carter's calm resilience, supported by Michael's unwavering strength and Isaiah's determined voice, had transformed more than just a reservation. They had shifted the very foundation of belonging and respect. It was a testament to the power of standing firm against prejudice and the quiet courage that ripples out to reshape entire communities. This story reminds us that talent and character cannot be measured by the color of one's skin or the clothes they wear, but by the steadfastness of their spirit and the justice they pursue. Like a lighthouse guiding ships through the darkest nights, one courageous stand can illuminate the way for many. Take a moment to reflect on the quiet acts of kindness and courage in your own life. Those small lights that often go unnoticed, but have the power to change the world around us. If this story touched your heart, consider passing its warmth to those who need it most, helping to build a community where everyone's place at the table is honored, and none are judged by anything but their humanity.